And welcome back to America's Forum right here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman.
And I'm J.D. Hayworth. John, we were talking about it the other day. Based on one key story, it seems like we're not allowed to have a private life anymore. I am referring to what has gone on in Silicon Valley. Brendan Eich, the CEO of Mozilla, in essence forced out because he contributed to Proposition 8, the preservation of traditional marriage, many years ago. Prop 8 banned gay marriage. It was approved by the voters, struck down by the courts in California. Now Forbes magazine, among others, is saying that other people who supported Prop 8 have been subject to intimidation, vandalism, and other personal and financial hardships, all committed by individuals complaining about intolerance and demanding acceptance of different lifestyles. But is this legal? What happened to the notion of free speech? Here to engage in her right for free speech, our legal expert Michelle Suskauer. So, Michelle, in America, can we have different opinions? Why would a private donation from years past suddenly become the topic in the boardroom and lead to this kind of pressure?
And this was 6 years ago, wasn't it, that he made this donation to support Prop 8? You know, this country was founded on free speech. That's why we're all here, and that's why we're able to have a variety of different opinions. And so it troubles me. It really does that there would be that type of pressure. For someone who is incredibly talented, what did he create? Firefox and a variety of, I mean, he's a brilliant, brilliant guy, and certainly, from my understanding and what we discussed before camera, is that he's certainly not the only one. So does he have a right to make a contribution? This is not when he was CEO. I mean, this was, I don't know what his position was with the company or where he was, but certainly you would think someone has a right to make whatever donation they want to whatever cause they want to. But again, for example, like here, if someone were to make, in an at-work state, if someone were to make a donation that your boss doesn't approve of, I mean, you could be fired for any reason or no reason. But in this case, he resigned under pressure.
Well, but let's drill down on the notion of right to work in an at-work state with different causes away from the workplace is one thing. For example, we know the cases of national retailers saying to their employees, listen, we don't want you saying Merry Christmas. And the national employer has a right to say to someone in the workplace, listen, this is not the place for political and or religious convictions. But apart from that, the notion of when you return home, when you are, quote, off duty, don't you have an inherent right to do something in your own home and your own conduct?
Well, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to have the ability to do those types of things? But unfortunately, in the environment that we're in, there are different folks, especially in a corporation such as this, that are under that type of spotlight. And again, my understanding is that it's sort of prevalent throughout Silicon Valley in terms of this type of thing happening. But again, does he have a right to make that? The question is, does he have a right to make that type of contribution? He did. He made the contribution, but it was controversial, and there was that kind of focus to get him out, and it was political muscle. I mean, can we move this person out of the position, and it happened. In
our litigious age, if he wanted to, and of course he decided not to fight when some on the board came after him, but conceivably, would he have a case? Could he bring suit? Is this actionable?
You know, that's a good question. You would, and again, he resigned. So, you know, I don't know whether that he sort of signed any sort of documentation and confidentiality and has agreed and with some sort of golden parachute. I don't know what the situation was, but it could potentially be actionable. You would think, and yet. You know, it's a very tough question. I don't know, and this is I think this is something we haven't seen before.
With what JD mentioned, retailers not wanting their employees to tell customers Merry Christmas because that might alienate folks who don't practice that religion and cost them money. What rights do the board of directors and the investors and the shareholders have in situations like this to make sure that a situation like this does not cost them money?
I mean, and this is such a political hot potato across the country, but especially in California, because that's what we're talking about. I mean, when you had Prop 8 and you had sort of the, you know, it went from so many different levels throughout the court system and Supreme Court, and it's, I mean, personally, my personal views, you know, certainly, you know, I was against Prop 8, but I am for free speech, and certainly
That's
whether
exactly
it's
what makes
whether
this
it's
such a great topic of conversation.
I mean,
we're not going to
whether-
solve the issues
No,
here.
we're
but we'll leave it
absolutely
here.
not. We're
But
absolutely
we do
not.
want to talk about this case with Oscar Pistorius, the Olympic athlete here, and we're getting
Right.
this very graphic and emotional testimony coming from Pistorius on the stand. I believe we have a clip prepared. Let's go ahead and play that. Here's Oscar Pistorius.
I'm scared to sleep. For several reasons, but I have terrible nightmares about things that happen at night where I wake up and I can smell blood, and I wake up to being terrified. If I hear a noise, I wake up just in a complete state of terror, to a point that I'd rather not sleep.
Wow. Now you hear this. It's 2 days of this testimony now. Reva Steenkamp's family right there listening to Oscar Pistorius, watching him give this testimony. Of course, different legal system there. One judge, a couple of assistants, no jury trial. But there's always a difficult decision as a defense attorney. Do you put your client on the stand, yes or no?
It is, as a criminal defense lawyer, it really depends on the case. But in this situation, absolutely, he had to take the stand. He was the only one there. There's no other witness other than neighbors who may have heard screaming and gunshots at different times. There's no one who could tell the story. And he, in my opinion, again, from my point of view, I thought he was very credible, very believable. And look, we have a very different criminal justice system. There is no death penalty in South Africa. There's no jury trial. You have a judge it's up for sentencing is totally in her control. She has 2 assessors, 2 assistants, who, by the way, can overrule her.
Oh, that's interesting.
In terms of guilt or innocence, but sentencing, again, completely up to the judge. This is the first televised trial. I mean, this is like their OJ. I mean, this is tremendous, tremendous.
But the difference is Pistorius did not flee, and in fact, part of the defense was for him to take off his prosthetic legs to show how, despite being a great athlete, how small a person he is. And then what was it, 2 weeks ago, where he got physically ill and vomited during the course of the introduction of physical evidence.
I mean, this is, you also have, you can't look at this in a vacuum. You also have to look at what what South Africa is like in terms of the amount of crime. Even though he was in a gated community, even though they're surrounded by barbed wire, electrified fences, etc., the crime is pervasive there. It's insane, the amount of crime that's there. And it's a question of, so we're looking at it saying, well, how could he, why would he be so scared? And it really doesn't make sense, but we're not there living that lifestyle. And again, I personally think from the last 2 days, I thought he was incredibly credible, especially his
Well, Counselor, it sounds like you're a member of the defense team right now.
I would have been a member of the defense team had he wanted to use me, but again, I'm not an expert in South African criminal justice.
I wonder what it'd be like to pass their bar, a whole different thing down there. Michelle, we really appreciate your input and your legal perspective you bring to us in this litigious age. Of course, we want to hear from you as well. Love to get in your comments via social media. You can tweet us your comments on this case or other issues at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. There's email. Email is connect@newsmaxtv.com. And of course, there's Facebook. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
It was erected in the dead of night, and for 28 years separated East Germany from West Germany. The Berlin Wall quickly came to symbolize the stark difference between the free West and the communist East. In June of 1987, President Reagan visited the wall at the famous Brandenburg Gate and used the occasion to issue 2 public challenges to then Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev.
If you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate.
His second challenge was more blunt, and as it turned out, even more prophetic.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
On November 9th, 1989, 2 years, 5 months, and 1 day after President Reagan's famous challenge, that is exactly what happened. Only the Soviets didn't tear down the wall. The people of Berlin did. Once the East German government announced their borders to the west were open, the free people on both sides of the wall worked in unison to chip it away, piece by piece, until this monument to tyranny was completely destroyed. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.